How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we do have a guide for the new boss, the Arch-Glacor. Hopefully this guide will help out any newer players that are struggling to get through the kills, or maybe someone who just wants to move from normal mode over to hard mode, as we will be focusing on the hard mode throughout this video. Of course, I'll quickly touch on normal mode, as it is something that is required to be able to get into hard mode, but once we've done that, we'll be straight onto all the hard mode stuff. So hopefully this video does help you out. If it does, leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, but otherwise, let's talk about this boss, shall we? Okay, so the things to mention before getting started is the requirements for this boss. There are none except just knowing where the location is. Of course, at the moment, the boss is available through the newest boss portal. However, if you're watching this like way later down the line, then you are going to want to go to Sentiston, the city of Sentiston, and it is on the south side, which is the Glacor front. There are no requirements to actually start the fight and actually get into the boss, so don't worry about that too much, which is absolutely awesome to see. As for recommended gear, I would say you could probably quite comfortably do this in anything from God Wars Dungeon 1 and upwards, so tier 70 plus would probably be absolutely fine, and especially if you're just looking at normal mode. However, this boss is very similar to Telos in the way that it does have a streaking system, so the further you go in the hard mode version, which has the streak and enrage system, it is going to get a lot more difficult the further down that line you get, and of course the further you go or the further you plan to go, it's going to be better to have better gear. So I suggest equipping yourself with whatever best gear you've got, as even earlier on, obviously the better gear you've got, the faster you get through kills, the easier life's going to be. As for the combat style specifically, I would suggest using range or magic. Either of these would work fine. I'm sure you could melee it as well, however, you are going to have issues sometimes on being able to actually reach the boss, so it would make sense and it would be a lot easier to use magic or range. Looking at an inventory setup, you're going to want to bring overloads of prayer renewal. Make sure you got some prayer potions of some kind, or spiritual prayer potions if you are bringing a Ripper Demon. I would suggest bringing a Ripper Demon, as the mechanics here won't take too much of your food unless you're pushing a lot further on. But of course, using a yak is also just perfectly fine. Make sure to bring along weapon poison, as this boss can be poisoned, so also Cinderbane gloves will be an amazing use to bring as well. Make sure you do have a shield with you. Shields are absolutely important in every aspect of this boss. Make sure you have one of those with you. Please don't forget your shield. Bladed dive is super useful here as well, so I suggest you bring along a bladed dive switch, and then you've got your ring of vigor, all the normal stuff basically, your food, your brews, and also if you want you can chuck in a vitality potion as well. I like to bring one of those along just in case I get myself in a sticky situation. You can down one of those and it can help you through a little bit, but you should be fine. You probably don't even need it. I haven't used it in a long time now, but at the moment I don't see any reason not to have it in there. Alright, so when you arrive here for the first time, this is what the outside of the place looks like, the Glacor front, and you're going to have all these characters here along the side of the wall just there. And what these people represent is one of each ability. Now, to turn the abilities on and off, because you can do this however you want, you can start off in normal mode with no mechanics whatsoever, and then you can work your way up to having full mechanics, and then what you want to do eventually is complete one normal mode kill with all the mechanics enabled to be able to unlock hard mode. Once you've got hard mode enabled, all the mechanics will have to be switched on for hard mode, so that's not anything you really need to worry about. But when you get here, all of these will be toggled off. You're going to want to toggle them on for as many as you want to actually get through. You can learn these one at a time if that is the most comfortable way for you to do it, but normal mode really isn't that difficult, so for anyone with a little bit of experience, you'll be absolutely fine to toggle all of these on, and then you can pretty much soul split camp through most of the kill anyway. Once you're in a position that you have all of your abilities toggled on, you want to complete your first normal mode kill using the same setup. Everything's exactly the same. Chuck on your aura and then just go in here as a normal mode kill. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is break down all the abilities one at a time, and we'll talk about them separately, and then once we've got that, you guys will be able to recognize what's going on, and then you'll be able to adjust yourself accordingly to what's happening in the actual fight. The way this boss works is the mechanics aren't necessarily in a specific order. They can be used in any order that the boss chooses. However, there is indication of what mechanic is about to happen, giving you a little bit of time to ready yourself so you can actually deal with those mechanics in the best way possible. So let's start off with talking about how you can actually indicate what mechanic is about to happen. The best way to do it is to pay attention to what position the icicles on the ground is at. Those icicles will be in the exact same position to show exactly what ability is about to happen. Now, you can't tell from what abilities just happened to what ability is about to happen next, but those icicles will indicate what special attack the boss is about to use. So do keep that in mind, as it is going to be important, and it will be something I point out for each and every mechanic. Okay, so I'm going to talk about these in the order that it actually shows in the Arch-Glacor setup when you actually get to the area, so you'll be able to follow along that way and you kind of know what ability I'm talking about if it helps out a little bit. But the first mechanic I'm going to talk about is the one called Flurry. Now, Flurry is the one that basically means you have to prayer flick. Don't panic too much when you hear the words prayer flick. They aren't as difficult as Fracture, for example. It makes life a little bit easier. You have quite a bit of time. It's absolutely fine. He will use all combat styles for this, so you will have to switch between ranged, magic, and melee. But like I say, you've got plenty of time, so don't panic. So as the icicles move in from the outer edge of the arena, you can see a little line comes out before them, and this will indicate how far along those icicles are going to go. For the flurry mechanic, icicles are going to come in from both sides at the same time, leaving a decently wide space in the middle of the arena. When this happens, this is your indicator to know that you will be prayer flicking the next few attacks. The attacks are easily enough to notice, and the best way to do it is to pay attention to his hands. For a range attack, you will notice there is a green smoke added to the tip of his claw. This is your indicator to protect from range. For a melee attack, he's going to swipe his arm across the actual platform, so as soon as you see him place his arm down against the platform, that's when you're going to want to protect from melee. The magic hit doesn't have any special animations, it is just an attack as he is a base magic boss, so when you see his claw go back to attack normally, if there's no green smoke, if he's not swiping, then it is a mage attack, so keep protect from magic on for that one. That is it for this mechanic. All you're going to want to do is make sure you prayer flick for the right attacks and make sure you don't get absolutely murdered, as especially at higher enrages, the auto attacks, if you do miss one of them, it can actually be the difference between life and death. Like, these hit hard. Without prayer, these can definitely do a lot of damage. The next mechanic is the Pillars of Ice, and like I say, these are all out of any specific order. He can use them whenever they want, just so you guys know that this isn't going to happen in the exact order I talk about. But the next one is Pillars of Ice, and this is one that is probably going to be the one that kills most people, especially while you're learning. There's a way to deal with them, and I'm going to talk about it. It's a little bit overkill, probably, but it is the best way that I've found to do it, and it is the most comfortable way that I've found to do it. And since this is aimed at learners, this is probably going to be the best way for you to do this. The way this mechanic works is you will notice that the icicles will push you over to the right hand side of the arena. You will have icicles coming from the left, and it'll push you all the way over to the right hand side, and there will be nothing coming out from the right hand side. As the icicles reach the end, the Glacyte will spawn a pillar of ice. Now, if this ice pillar does touch you, it is going to take away your health, your adrenaline, and your prayer at the exact same time. It is typeless damage. Reflect, Debilitate does do nothing to it, but Barricade does. So what I would suggest you do is, as soon as you notice that those icicles are traveling from the left all the way to the end at the right, and like I said earlier, you can notice where it's going to go because there's a little bit of ice that flies out before the icicles itself, and it travels as far as the ice are going to go, so it can indicate that yes, this is going to go all the way down to the end of the arena. If you notice this, start saving your adrenaline to make sure you have Barricade available, as this is going to be the safest and the most easy way to deal with it. As soon as you reach the end, you're going to want to stand where I am stood here now in this corner exactly, and then wait for the first pillar of ice to spawn. The pillar of ice is going to spawn not too far away, and it will slowly make its way over to you. If you're stood on this side here, it will also move backwards towards the north wall, and as it does that and as it gets closer, you want to then move down to the south and then walk around the pillar of ice as you see me do here. This isn't the only pillar of ice that will spawn, you will have 3 in total. The second one will spawn on the far end of the room, and then the third one will spawn in the middle of the room. As they spawn, you can see when they are about to happen, as it will show a little bit of ice shatter on the ground where it is going to spawn. I'll be showing you this on screen now, as it is important that you look out for this, and it is something you will want to be noticing every single time you deal with this mechanic. What I'll suggest you do is, as you are at 100% adrenaline, make sure you have your shield on. As soon as you have walked around the first pillar of ice, keep an eye out for the ground, and as soon as you see the little shatter indicating that the third pillar of ice, the one in the middle, is about to spawn, as soon as you see that ice shatter, barricade. Having turtling on your shield will allow you to actually barricade long enough that you don't have to take your shield off until the pillars of ice are gone, and you can absolutely not worry about taking any damage whatsoever. However, even though you are barricaded, it will still drain your prayer, it will still drain your adrenaline, so you are going to want to make sure you try your best to avoid the ice beams at this point, even though you are barricaded. But at the same time, if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Just drink some prayer potions so you are ready for it once it does end. Another method you can do is to surge through the beams, get to the end, and then make your way back along the room, as you can see me doing here. This is a bit more risky, but with practice you could probably pull it off fairly easily. But at higher enrages, one hit from these beams can be your death, so you want to be barricading these if you can. Otherwise, you could use things like a vitality potion as you are about to get hit by them and hope that you don't die that way. But honestly, these beams of ice will do a lot of damage to you, so barricading them is by far the most comfortable, safest, and most chilled out way to deal with them. At the moment, there's currently a bug where the third pillar of ice sort of teleports back to the middle and then will travel again for about literally just about 1 second. So keep your barricade on once the 3 pillars of ice have gone, as there will be another one coming. If this has been fixed after this video goes live, then don't worry about this bit, it's absolutely fine, but don't take your barricade off until all the pillars of ice have gone. One thing that I should definitely mention is that this boss can repeat this mechanic back to back, and it is something that will make your life a little bit more difficult. It will happen rarely, but it will definitely happen every now and again. So what can happen is, as soon as this mechanic ends, you'll notice the icicles fly out from the left hand side again, traveling all the way down to the right, showing that this mechanic is about to repeat. If this happens, your barricade will be on cooldown and you will have to avoid the pillars of ice by walking, but like I say, it's possible to do that. Just be careful, try not to walk into them, because if you do, at higher enrages, it's probably going to mean death. The next mechanic is the exposed core. This one's nice and easy to deal with. This happens when the icicles come from both sides at the same time and meet in the middle, but it leaves like an average size gap in the middle. I can't really explain it much better than that. There's an average size gap. I can show you on screen right now. It's not too tight. It's not as wide as the other ones. That's how you notice this ability. What's going to happen is when this happens, he will put his arms down onto the arena, blocking your exit from the left or the right, and you're going to have to DPS down one of his arms. There's going to be like an exposed core, I guess you could call it, in the middle of between his hands, and you're just going to ignore that. You can't click on it or anything, but you are going to take some magic damage over time. What you're going to need to do is DPS down one of his arms, any arm, it doesn't matter which one, as fast as you can, and make sure you get rid of that before the mechanic ends. If you don't DPS it down and you don't break the arm, you're going to get stunned and you are going to take damage. However, DPSing one of the arms down is not an issue. You get plenty of time. It's not that big of a deal. Just do as much damage as you can. You don't need to be in sunshine. You don't need to be in death swiftness, anything like that. Just do as much damage as you can. You'll be absolutely fine. As soon as one breaks, you can just start building adrenaline either on the other one or back on the actual boss. But until the mechanic actually ends, you won't be able to deal any damage. You don't have to DPS both of the arms down. It does not matter which one you kill, as far as I can tell. One is weak to fire spells and one is weak to, I believe, crush. So if you are using either of those, then just keep in mind that you can attack with a specific style if you wanted to, but it doesn't really matter too much. You're absolutely fine. While you're in here, you are going to be taking magic damage, like I said. However, it is very minimal magic damage, and you can just use Soul Split to heal back any health that you may be missing while you're DPSing the arm down. That's all you need to know about this mechanic. There's nothing else you really need to know. As soon as you break the arm, you are absolutely safe. You can just go back to attacking the boss and waiting for the next mechanic to show up. The next mechanic is the Frost Cannon. This is the big, massive, interesting, exciting blast that goes across the room, and it's also incredibly easy to deal with. This is going to be indicated by the icicles being a very narrow area. You'll have one off to the left, one in the middle, and one off to the right. So the easiest way to notice this is you'll have icicles come from one side first, and then as that's traveled down a little bit, you'll see them start coming out from the other side as well, and you'll be left with a very narrow space. Like, it is very narrow. So when you see this, this is your indication that you are going to be getting the Frost Cannon in probably about 1 or 2 auto attacks from this point. So you want to anticipate or freedom, and then use devotion. Make sure you're praying magic, as it is a magic damaged hit, and you do want to make sure you're praying that, otherwise you're probably going to die. The way this works is it will hit you 3 times for really high damage. If you have devotion on, obviously that is reduced to 0, so you're absolutely fine. You can also use reflect and debilitate if you don't have devotion available. As just like all the other mechanics, this can be replayed back to back if you get unlucky, but it's likely to not happen. But if it does, just do the same thing again, anticipate or freedom, and then just use reflect and debilitate. You'll be absolutely fine. People do use resonance on this as well, but it is a little bit tricky as it is in 3 hits, so you will want to resonance either the first hit or the last hit. But this means you would have to toggle your prayer off for one of those hits. And of course, if you do that at the wrong timing, it can definitely get you killed. So far, I have not rezzed any of the hits, and I'm still absolutely fine. I've been using about probably 1 brew, like literally 1 brew throughout the whole kill at this point. So you don't really need to use much food at this point, but later on, if you're wanting to push like very, very far down the line, then you're probably going to want to start resonancing as many hits as you can to make sure you like conserve food, because the hits, the auto attacks later on do a frick ton of damage, and you're going to be eating. You're going to need to use food. But like I say, this guide's sort of for the people who are learning anyway, so what you're going to want to do is, as soon as you see that those icicles have come very close together and the cannon is about to start, use anticipate, use devotion, and then you'll be absolutely fine as long as you have magic prayer on. Now, the only downside to this is, of course, you will probably want to save devotion for when this cannon happens. I do not suggest you use devotion at all unless you're dealing with this mechanic. If you use it at the beginning to stall adrenaline, chances are it's going to screw you over somehow, and you're going to need to use devotion before it's ready again. It'll use like the cannon first or something. So I would highly suggest just holding on to devotion for when this mechanic happens. There's nothing else to know about it other than the fact that it comes in 3 hits. The reason you anticipate or use freedom is because you are going to get stunned from this as well. But like I say, if you have devotion up, this stun doesn't even do any damage to you anyway. So as long as you are devotion for this, you'll be absolutely fine. But like I said, this can come back to back, so make sure if it does come back to back, you just use reflect, use debilitate, make sure you got protect from magic on, freedom, anticipate, you'll be absolutely fine. Don't panic. Alright, look at that, we have 1 more mechanic left to do. This wasn't too bad, was it? So the last mechanic is going to be called the Glacial Minions. Glacyte minions, whatever you want to call them. They're summons, they're minions, they're adds, whatever you call them in any game, that's what they are. They're extras, they're a pain in the ass. But actually, they're not that bad to deal with. So Basically, these minions will seem to just spawn at random, but basically it is when there is no icicles at all. That's your indicator for these minions, but you don't have to panic. I don't really know when these minions are going to happen beforehand most of the time because I'm too busy paying attention waiting for the icicles, and then next thing I know there's minions thrown out there. It's not something that's going to kill you, you just need to pay attention. When they come out, all you want to do is make sure you kill them off as soon as possible. If you're using range, make sure to use chin chompers. If you're using magic, then Greater Chain is absolutely amazing here as well. I like to use Insight Fear to clear these off too, as it does give a little bit of extra AoE, and it also lets you spam the Tsunami spell, which clears them off super easy. So when these come out, what they will do is they will stop you from being able to do any damage to the actual boss itself until you've killed them off. So that's why you want to kill them straight away. They will be grouped up, so you don't have to worry about getting them all stacked nicely. They will be grouped in a nice stack of 4, and then you literally just do damage to them, clear them down, get rid of them, you'll be absolutely fine. Detonate, Tsunami, Chin Chompers, they'll be done. Once they die, they will leave like a little light ball on the floor. You want to click on this and it will do damage to the boss, and then you get back on the boss and you're good to go. These do attack with, I believe, magic and melee, but up until 500% Enrage, I have not noticed that they really do any damage whatsoever. Now, this is the mechanic that does change slightly once you do reach 250% Enrage, and all it will change is there will be one extra golem added to this, and it will spawn next to you rather than in the group with the others. This will have a little bit more health than the other ones. You just want to clear it off just like the other ones as well. I've not noticed any mechanics with it. There may be something, but if there is, honestly, it is not something you need to worry about because I have noticed nothing at all. So just get this killed off as well, kill off the rest, and as soon as they're all dead, all 5 of them, you can move on and you can get back on the boss. Like I say, this will only be after 250% Enrage, so before that, you'll only have the 4 to deal with. So that is all the mechanics. There is no more mechanics to talk about. That is all of them. The rest is just auto attacks, and honestly, as long as you keep the right prayer flicks on, you'll be absolutely fine. So that is going to be the main chunk of the guide. That is going to be most of the information that you need to know. And of course, all the way through the actual boss fight, he can just pick and choose whichever mechanic he wants to use next. There's no set order. It's not like every other boss where you count the hits and then the next mechanic has always been told that this is exactly what's going to happen. You basically just have to react as it does happen on the fly. But like I say, you get plenty of warning with the positioning of the icicles, and it does make your life a bit easier knowing that that's how that works. The only last things I wanted to mention really is that as you push Enrage, like I say, what's going to go up is the boss's health, the damage that he does through auto attacks, the health of the actual minions that he spawns go up as well, and other than that I have not seen anything else change whatsoever. I also want to just make it clear that this guide was aimed towards people who are just wanting to learn and get into the actual boss. When you push to higher Enrages, like much higher Enrages, you will want to change your strategies a little bit to make sure you save as much food as you can, doing things like making sure you resonance the hits every chance you get, being able to make sure that you used devotion throughout the entire fight, and then that way when you deal with the cannon, you'll probably be dealing with it with resonance and reflect instead, rather than actually using devotion on that and saving it for that. But this is basically going to get you guys all the way to 500% without any issues whatsoever. And like I said earlier, as long as you devotion the cannon, barricade the ice pillars, you'll be absolutely fine. Those are the 2 issues. Those are the 2 things that people are going to struggle with the most. As long as you make sure you save devotion for that cannon, make sure to barricade the ice pillars like I showed you guys, you'll be fine. You'll be able to push up. You may have a little death here and there if you make a little mistake. It's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. Don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine. Get yourself back in there and you'll be good to go. Once you do get the kills, you will notice, like I say, in hard mode that there is a streaking thing just like Telos. You can continue the streak on, which will risk your loot. If you die, you will lose a certain percentage of that loot, depending on how many kills you actually have done so far. If you do want to claim the loot, then you can just claim it at the end of a kill, but if you press continue, you have to go back in, you have to get one more kill, as the chest will then basically be locked and you won't be able to take your loot out until you've pushed through to the end of another kill. Alright, so that's pretty much all I have for this video. I hope it does help you guys out. I hope it helps you get some kills and helps you guys get to 500% Enrage if you were struggling, or if you were just wondering what you should be looking out for before you get into the fight. But basically, as long as you pay attention to the mechanics and keep an eye out for what's coming next, you'll be absolutely fine, and I wish you the best of luck. In hard mode, you can get all of the amazing drops from here, and of course, there are some really good, valuable weapons from this as well. The tier 95 melee weapons are looking absolutely amazing, and I hope that you all get lucky and get as many of those as you can. If you have any questions whatsoever, get yourself in the comments and ask away. I will answer as many questions as I can. If it does take a little while, I do apologize, but I will answer them as soon as I can, and as many as I can, and as often as I can. If you enjoyed the video, if it does help you out, then leave a like on it as well. If you're new to the channel and this video helped and you enjoy this sort of stuff, then make sure to subscribe to the channel too, as I will have more guides coming out in the future for the other bosses as well, probably at some point, but we'll have to see what happens when those come out. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to my channel members for the extra support that you guys always provide. It is absolutely amazing, and I really do appreciate that. Your names will be on screen right now. If anyone else wants to join those guys, then click the join button by the sub button and you can join them and see what perks you do get. yet. Otherwise, thank you all again so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.